This story starts really simply. It starts with me as a teenager deciding to get a job at a fast food restaurant. And this particular fast food restaurant came with a lot of free cheeseburgers. So I began eating said cheeseburgers, and eventually that began to show. So at 17, right before college, I decided I needed to lose some weight. I didn't have enough money for a gym membership. I didn't have enough money for any fancy exercise equipment. So I decided that I would take up running. I'm from Philadelphia, and that's the city of brotherly love. It's also a place with a lot of hard-line racial divisions. So even though I was young, I knew I had to dress the part. So what I did was I put on my best pair of sneakers. I put on some sweatpants. I put on a headband. I even threw a towel around my neck the way that I saw joggers on television do. And I took off running. So as I passed through my own neighborhood, I was fine. As I passed the invisible barrier between my neighborhood and the neighborhood next to it, the predominantly white neighborhood, things began to change. So I remember how people began to tense up as I ran by. And I'll always remember when a white woman, she dropped her groceries, and ran in the other direction. Yeah. So I say all that to say that running is political and so is health. So if I were to ask you to plot a run through your community, how would you do it? Think about it. Think about your neighborhood. Think about the map you'd see in your head. Think about how you'd prepare. Would you take a cell phone, mace? Would you run alone? Would you run in the dark? Would you always take a friend? Running reveals how we internalize our geography. It maps what surrounds us, and it maps who we are. So this is a route that might be familiar. When the news of 17-year-old Trayvon Martin's death broke, I couldn't help but think back to my own story of what it was like to be a 17-year-old marked black and moving through the city. If you look at the route that Trayvon Martin took, the neighborhood that he lived in, you see that he would have had to traverse blocks that had no sidewalks. He would have encountered foreclosed homes, and of course, neighbors who were willing to cast suspicion on him. He was in no way free to move through his community. So in thinking about this and trying to figure out a way to respond to it, I personally went out to a local park that was named for a segregationist who I knew would be infuriated by the fact that I was using the park, and I began to run. After a while, other people began to join me, and for reasons that will be obvious, we named our group Black Man Running. So Black Man Running is a response to a set of circumstances. Now, if I tell you that people of color, African Americans and African American males in particular, are being left out of running, it seems like hyperbole and imagination. But as I read up on the problem, I encountered the work of Dr. Rayshawn Ray. Now, Dr. Ray is a sociologist at the University of Maryland. He is also an African American male who averages about 4 to 6 miles a day. Dr. Ray wondered why it was that more people who looked like him weren't hitting the pavement each morning. And as he began to dig into the numbers, he discovered that African American males were less likely to engage in outdoor recreational activity. And he eventually concluded that the reason why was because of the fear of profiling. They were afraid that if they ran through their neighborhood, as absurd as it sounds, someone would give chase, right? So in reaction to this, the BMR group, we decided that we were going to hack the 5K. We were going to, I should say the first BMR was in November 2015, and the next BMR 5K will be in March. And it is not merely a 5K. It is a community organizing project. It is a public performance meant to bring people into a conversation about racial justice. So we are not just athletes. Actually, I tweaked my knee and I've been cycling and barely cycling. But we are, we are activists, we are faith leaders, we are artists, and we come together at the BMR 5K to run for justice, certainly. We also come together to create art around justice and have a conversation around justice. So the BMR 5K is one part of our work, and it was extremely successful. We managed to bring hundreds of people together for what is essentially a reiterative protest movement. So we know, someone mentioned, protest flashpoints. And ultimately, those protest flashpoints are exhausting. BMR allows us to confront these issues in a way that is actually energizing and sustaining, right? Okay, so another outgrowth of this work is the Free Movement Running Project. So free movement runners come together, and their mission is to traverse zip codes, traverse lines of gentrification, traverse demography, right? And also to highlight not just the restrictions that African Americans face, but the restrictions that members of our LGBT community face, immigrants face, women face. And we come together actually every Monday at 6:30 if you happen to want to join. So our vision for this project is that you get involved. You decide to help us create free movement running groups in cities across the country, and also BMR 5Ks. So with that, I invite you to come run with us, and I thank you for your time.